Definition of explore. Writing to explore offers the chance to write for a variety of audiences in a variety of ways. To explore can mean to search out or inquire into a subject or character. It can also mean to examine closely and even to travel over or into unknown territory. Accuracy when writing to explore. In writing to explore, it is important to use a range of punctuation correctly, including full stops and capital letters. Higher grade work should use apostrophes and commas, colons and semicolons. Spelling should be accurate, and an extensive descriptive vocabulary should be used. A variation of sentence structures is necessary to make the writing interesting to read. Genre. The kind of writing, the subject matter or the genre can change the whole way the reader connects with an assignment. Science fiction, romance, autobiographies, westerns, thrillers, horror stories and historical stories can all be related to a simple title like The Stranger. A title set on an examination paper or coursework assignment can be explored in different ways by choosing a different genre. Choose the genre that suits your interest and knowledge of fiction and non-fiction. Do not always set your writing in the present or in a conventional setting. Exploring a place. If you describe a place in your story, you must try to use interesting vocabulary to explore the sights, sounds and noises of the people and buildings, or the natural beauty of the surroundings. In a short story, you need to paint a picture of the place where the action occurs in a few key phrases. Exploring a voice. You may explore different viewpoints within your story or tell your story from different perspectives. Sometimes you will tell a story about other people, adopting the role of the omniscient narrator, the unintrusive storyteller who sees everything. Thereby you would use the third-person narrative voice. Sometimes you may be a character in the story, and the story is told through your own eyes using the first-person narrative voice. This allows a very direct, personal insight into your character's mind. Some writers vary the voice in their stories by using letters, witnesses, and other characters' words to tell the story from different viewpoints. This technique requires the first-person narrative voice, but is written from the personal perspective of various characters. Exploring a character. Physical appearance. In a story, a physical description is important to establish character. One aspect of a character can be vital to the reader, such as height, left-handedness, or speed off the mark. The way other characters react to their appearance is also very important, whether they are intimidated by their power or overcome by their beauty. The face or even the expression of the eyes can say a great deal about the way the character is perceived. Exploring a character. Personality. When describing a character, it is important not to neglect a description of their personality, as this will often give a clue to future motivation and actions. The best stories explore characteristics and hint at deeds to come. The worst stories have featureless characters taking part in unexplained events for no apparent reason. The opening. The opening of a story is important to grip the reader's attention. Many of the greatest novels or short stories establish the major character from the beginning. Pose a question for the reader to make them want to read on. Do not tell them too much too soon. Your opening should set the scene for the reader. However, it should also use the simple past. They left the shore, or the past progressive. We were laughing with excitement, to help bring a scene from the past back to life. Endings. Never write the end at the end of a piece of writing. Instead, let your ending create a sense of completeness, or alternatively, opt for an open-ended feel. Endings should not be too sudden and unexplained. The best stories have a slight twist in the tale, something a little unexpected happening. Well-written endings should reflect both the title and the established character of the main protagonist. Establishing a mood. If you wish to create a particular mood when writing about a certain experience, then choice of language is important. Nature can also establish a mood. Authors sometimes use this to communicate the mood of the main characters or their chances of happiness. This is called pathetic fallacy. If you wish to write about a joyful experience, then images of bright colours and sunny days could be used. Conversely, a solemn or depressing experience would be shown by dark and cold imagery allied to a mood of loneliness or isolation. This could be shown by a rainy day or a storm destroying a formerly tranquil scene. Definitions. To entertain is to divert or amuse, to engage, to perform amusingly, to make people happy by producing something interesting through a dramatic or compelling performance. Writing to entertain usually has associations of light-heartedness and frivolity. However, entertainment can also reflect the interests of the audience and supply interest and amusement in a series of different ways. Humorous writing. Writing humorously is one of the most difficult things to do well. Telling jokes or amusing anecdotes, stories from real life, can be a good way to keep people reading in an engaged way. It is, however, important not to be crude or silly. Try to pick something which is not too far removed from everyday experience. Make the reader smile rather than try to make them laugh uncontrollably. Informative and contentious writing. Diaries. Diaries can be entertaining to read as they provide personal views and opinions, and readers find it interesting to look into someone else's private world. Diaries are written in a very direct style and do not always use full sentences. The best diaries give a real feeling about not only the writer but also the people around them, and ironic comments can often be at the heart of people's observations. People often like to show the difference between the way things seem and the way things really are. Word pictures. In some pieces of personal writing, there is no need for a hero or protagonist. Instead, you may draw a word picture. Like poets, writers try to look at everyday events and sights and express them in an original and entertaining way. In drawing mental pictures for the reader, you may sometimes use unrealistic comparisons, but like a poem, you can communicate your ideas in an effective way. Stream of consciousness. If you hear the words Christmas morning, your mind may conjure up a series of flowing images: presents, Christmas dinner, family visiting, children playing and trying out new presents. Ideas can be communicated by this overwhelming stream of consciousness in an entertaining and enjoyable way. Here, plot or character is not so important. The communication of feelings, thoughts and atmosphere is the key. Reviews. A review is to look again at something and make critical comments about its strengths and weaknesses. Reviews can be very entertaining to read, but need to be informative and focus on specific details of plot, language, setting, characterization, action, the opening and the conclusion. Review writers can be humorous, but whatever they say should be illustrated by close reference to the text. Poetry. Poetry is a very condensed form of writing, and when it is written to entertain, it needs to be thoughtful and substantial in outlook. A commentary should accompany each poem and explain its background ideas. Poetry must express feelings, draw mental pictures in the reader's mind, and use a variety of devices to put across its message. Monologue. A monologue is a dramatic speech spoken by a solitary character which offers a personal perspective on events. The layout of a monologue can be quite informal, as it is an honest expression of intimate feelings. The speech can be humorous and entertaining, informative, imaginative, sombre, or a combination of all these feelings. Stage directions or italics can be used to communicate any important ideas which may add a context to the speech. Exclamation marks may communicate feelings, and hyphens and dashes can indicate breaks in the rhythm of the speech or interruptions to the flow. It is acceptable to underline ideas that are important. One-act play. A one-act play is a self-contained narrative which usually focuses on one character and a short period of time, such as 24 hours. The setting is described at the beginning, and the opening should quickly establish mood and context. There is little need for a complicated plot. Quite ordinary events can form the action. The conclusion should be logical and tie up any loose ends. Features of short stories. Short stories are brief by definition. You should concentrate on one main event and only describe events which actually contribute to the story's plot. Do not spend time on the setting, just try to produce an atmosphere and deal with the consequences of the main events. Incorporate a twist in the tale, but it should not be too outrageous and should lead naturally from the opening paragraph. Characters' motivation should be mentioned. Choose the most interesting and logical order for your paragraphs. Topic sentences can help give a sense of progression to each paragraph. You should use a variety of connectives, meanwhile, because, moreover, nevertheless. Narrative voice. It is wise to pick an essay title that is in your sphere of interest, so you can write about the subject matter with ease. Decide whether you want to tell the story yourself, be present in the story, or write about other characters. Sometimes it is interesting to comment on the action. At other times you can be unobtrusive and just let the story flow. Feature of description. Show, not tell. Do not report action in your stories or description. Show the reader the action that is important to your story. For example, do not report, Tom was embarrassed. Instead, paint a picture in words. Tom shuffled from foot to foot. He could feel the blood rush to his face. His voice was hoarse and his manner uncertain. If there had been an award for being uncomfortable, he would have won first prize. Characters' motivation. When writing about your characters, remember that the reader will want to know the reason for a character's actions. Were there any clues in their behaviour or their body language which linked their actions with what they were thinking? As short stories do not usually use many characters or settings, there is a real opportunity to focus on your main protagonist. Any details of their past should be a clue as to how they will behave in the future. Use of dialogue. Dialogue should add to the power of the story. Unnecessary dialogue, however, would be a barrier to a good story. It is important to recognise that pace and character development are crucial elements in advancing the story. Always use a new line for each new speaker and use a range of sentence types, statements, questions, exclamations. Use a variety of sentence lengths for effect. Use of adverbial phrases. To keep your reader's attention, avoid using simple or even compound sentences, as they can appear monotonous if they present only simple statements. Use adverbial clauses to make the sentence more interesting. Tell the reader when, where, how, or why something has happened. For example, when explaining where something is placed, try to use a variety of prepositions. Underneath, close by, nearby, opposite, far. Use of contrasts. In a short story, comparisons are useful to show how far you have come in your story's journey. If your protagonist has changed or undergone many different adventures, it is a good idea to show the extent to which they have changed. Remember, the reader knows nothing about the friends you know or the places you are familiar with, so if you include them in your story, you must describe them in detail in order to paint a clear and vivid image. Setting the scene. When setting a scene in your short story, always paint a clear enough picture in the reader's mind. Avoid general sketches which leave too many questions unanswered. For example, introducing a character as a large man is much less effective than a gruff, grim giant of a man with a ferocious dark look in his eye. Describing the main event, using relative pronouns. Relative pronouns and subordinate clauses can help story writing become more involved and complex in description. Relative pronouns such as who, whose, and that add interest to the description of everyday events and help to link ideas together. The man who lives next door, the man whose wife was voted Prime Minister, the umbrella that I left outside was stolen. Describing the main event, redrafting. When redrafting a piece of writing to make it more descriptive and evocative, you should try to use more illustrative words, use a more extensive vocabulary of description, use figurative language, link sentences and paragraphs, create atmosphere and avoid repetition.